The Old Stone Age was a world where every step could be your last, a time when survival wasn't guaranteed and danger lurked in every shadow. The Old Stone Age, or the Paleolithic, was a brutal chapter of human history. This was an era where humans and their relatives faced a gauntlet of threats: wild beasts, unforgiving landscapes, and even each other. From deadly animal attacks to violent intergroup conflict, from accidents in the dark to the terror of cannibalism, there were truly a million ways to die in the Old Stone Age. Literally everything wanted to kill you, including hungry animals, neighboring hordes, cannibals, major and minor injuries, a landscape full of deadly traps, and maybe even scorned lovers. What would it feel like to live in a time when death could come from 1,000 different directions? How did our ancient ancestors meet their ends, and what stories do their bones tell us today? Through incredible archaeological finds, archaeologists have uncovered evidence of violent deaths, tragic accidents, and chilling acts of cannibalism, headhunting and scalping. The archaeological record paints a grim picture of a time when life expectancy hovered around 30 years, if you were lucky. Bones riddled with fractures, puncture wounds and cut marks tell us that death was often slow, violent, and merciless. These are some of the most astonishing cases where science has illuminated the deadly fates of our ancestors and cousins. Okay, now let's dive into this prehistoric boneyard and explore a million ways to die in the Old Stone Age, highlighting some of the most gripping discoveries that reveal the causes of death. Act 1. The Murder of SHANIDAR III. In the rugged Zagros Mountains of modern-day Iraqi Kurdistan lies SHANIDAR Cave, a treasure trove of Neanderthal remains. Among them is SHANIDAR III, a 40 to 50-year-old Neanderthal male who met a gruesome end between 45,000 and 55,000 years ago. His skeleton, excavated in 1957, bears a chilling clue: a deep wound on his left ninth rib, among other injuries. Researchers believe the injury came from a sharp weapon, likely a spear, that pierced his chest and possibly collapsed his lung. Among the remains of his battered skeleton, archaeologists found a wound that speaks of violence, a puncture wound to the left ninth rib. Not a crushing blow, not a simple break from a fall, but a precise wound made by something sharp and deliberate. The point struck at higher velocity, as a low-speed thrust would have shattered the rib more extensively. Another clue was the angle of the wound. The spear that nicked his ninth left rib entered his body at about 45 degrees downward angle, which is consistent with the ballistic trajectory of a thrown weapon. The bone shows signs of healing, meaning he survived for weeks before succumbing. Some anthropologists speculate this could be evidence of interspecies violence, with modern humans wielding projectile weapons against their Neanderthal cousins. Furthermore, another Neanderthal man from this same cave suffered a fractured skull, 2 broken legs and a withered right arm, and 2 more Neanderthals from this cave are believed to have died from rockfalls. In the end, SHANIDAR III was laid to rest in SHANIDAR Cave, where his bones would remain undisturbed for tens of thousands of years. His burial suggests that his people cared for their dead, that they took time to place him in the earth rather than leave him to the scavengers. Did they mark his grave with stories, warning the younger ones to be wary of the dangers beyond the cave's sheltering walls and the strangers down in the valley? Picture yourself as a Neanderthal hunter-gatherer, roaming vast plains or dense forests with nothing but stone tools and your wits, just you against the elements and everything else that wanted to eat you or kill you. The time period between 500,000 and 50,000 years ago falls within the Middle Paleolithic period, which is a subdivision of the Old Stone Age. The Stone Age wasn't for the faint of heart. Act 2. The Sophisticated KRAPINA Cannibals. Travel to northern Croatia, and you'll find KRAPINA Cave, a site that chills the blood with its evidence of Neanderthal cannibalism. Dating back about 130,000 years, the remains of over 80 individuals, men, women and children, were unearthed here starting in 1899. The bones are a macabre puzzle, fractured, cut and scorched, with marks suggesting they were butchered like animal carcasses. Were these Neanderthals starving, or was this a ritual act? The original discoverer of the KRAPINA site wrote that Neanderthals evidently did not coexist peacefully with their neighbours because our diluvial man was apparently a cannibal, judging by the fragments of charred skull and extremities. It is difficult to imagine early man from KRAPINA enjoying the wealth of his hunt in peace and undisturbed. No doubt he was attacked on his territory from time to time by neighbouring hordes, who may not have had such abundant hunting grounds. Neanderthals fell on each side, and the victors proceeded with the dead as they did with the catch from a good hunt. However, the Neanderthals of KRAPINA were no simple-minded brutes. In fact, within this chamber of horrors was also found what appears to be several eagle talons that appear to have been fashioned into a necklace. The eagle talons are carefully removed from the eagle and cut so that they could have been hung together. Whatever the case, one theory posits hunger drove them to eat their own, while another suggests symbolic intent, perhaps honouring the dead by consuming them. But what would push a group to such extremes? Desperation or devotion? The consistent markings on skulls, arms and legs hint at a repeated practice spanning thousands of years. Act 3. Mass murder in Spain. The Cima de los Huesos, or Pit of Bones, is one of the most remarkable archaeological and paleoanthropological sites in the world. Located deep within the Atapuerca Mountains in northern Spain, the site has yielded a treasure trove of fossilized remains from at least 28 individuals dating back approximately 430,000 years. These remains belong to an early population of hominins, who are believed to be either early Neanderthals or close relatives of Neanderthals. Among the most intriguing discoveries from this site is a skull known as Cranium 17, which bears evidence of a violent head wound, possibly one of the earliest known examples of homicide in human history. The Pit of Bones is a deep, vertical shaft that required ancient hominins to intentionally drop bodies into it. This has led to theories that it may represent an early form of burial or symbolic behaviour. The shaft is more than 13 metres deep, located inside a cave system, and difficult to access even with modern climbing gear. The fact that so many remains were found together, and with relatively little disturbance by predators or scavengers, suggests that these bodies were deliberately placed or discarded in the pit. Cranium 17 belongs to a young adult, and is one of the most complete hominin skulls ever found from this period. What makes it especially significant is that it bears two nearly identical holes on the left side of the frontal bone, just above the eye socket. These holes are not consistent with accidental falls or post-mortem damage. Forensic analysis showed that both wounds were inflicted at the same time, with the same weapon, and from the same angle, strongly suggesting intentional, interpersonal violence. Researchers argue that the positioning and nature of the injuries indicate that they were not caused by falling into the pit. Instead, the individual was likely already dead when placed there. The wounds appear to have been made with a blunt object, and the forensic evidence points toward deliberate blows. Given the lack of healing, the trauma almost certainly occurred shortly before death, possibly even being the cause of death. This has led to the conclusion that this may be the earliest known case of murder in the archaeological record. The implications of this find are profound. It not only sheds light on social interactions and potential violence among early human relatives, but also raises questions about how these societies dealt with death. If the bodies were intentionally placed in the pit, perhaps as a communal disposal area or as part of an early mortuary practice, then this site also represents some of the earliest evidence of ritual or symbolic behaviour. In sum, the Pit of Bones offers a unique window into the social and physical world of prehistoric hominins. The violent death evidenced in Cranium 17 reminds us that even hundreds of thousands of years ago, human ancestors grappled with the same complex emotions, conflicts, and social behaviours that shape humanity today. Meanwhile, deep in another cave system in northern Spain, the El Sidron site reveals another chapter of Neanderthal cannibalism dated to around 49,000 years ago. Here, the remains of 13 individuals, likely a family group, tell a story of slaughter. Their bones, found in a tunnel, bear cut marks and fractures, consistent with being defleshed and marrow extracted. Who could do this to their own kin? The lack of animal remains nearby suggests this wasn't a casual meal, but a targeted act, possibly by a rival Neanderthal group during a time of scarcity. The victims included adults, adolescents and children, their lives snuffed out and their bodies consumed. Was this revenge, survival, or both? The silence of the cave holds no answers, only echoes of a brutal past. Here, the dead speak not just of survival, but of community and its violent destruction. The bones of the 12 Neanderthals found in the El Sidron cave in Spain, 3 adult males, 3 adult females, 3 teenagers and 3 children, tell a grim tale. All show cut marks, signs of scalping, defleshing and crushing for marrow extraction. Dated to only 49,000 years ago, the site is a recent Neanderthal massacre. But unlike other sites, genetic analysis revealed something more. All the adult males were closely related, while the females came from different groups. This suggests a patrilical society. Males stayed together while females joined from elsewhere. Could this have been a targeted attack on a family group by rival Neanderthals? Or was this cannibalism born of warfare? In Goya Cave, Belgium, the bones of 4 Neanderthals, 2 adults, 1 teenager and 1 child, dated to about 40,000 years ago, tell yet another tale of prehistoric cannibalism. The skeletons show slicing, crushing and even marrow extraction. In one case, a femur had been turned into a tool, a kind of bone hammer used for shaping other tools. Act 4. A Fall to Eternity. One of the most haunting prehistoric deaths comes from Italy, Altamura man. Discovered in 1993 in the Lamalunga cave, this Neanderthal skeleton, dated to between 130,000 and 172,000 years ago, remains remarkably preserved, encrusted in stalactites. How did he end up there? The answer seems tragically simple. He fell. Analysis of the cave reveals a deep vertical shaft, just wide enough to trap a person. Once he fell, there was no way out. He likely died slowly, perhaps of dehydration or starvation, in total darkness. His fossilized body tells a story not of violence or predators, but the silent danger of the terrain. One misstep in the dark could mean death. Did he see the drop coming, or was it a sudden plunge into darkness? Trapped in a narrow shaft, he likely starved or died of injuries, his bones untouched by scavengers but locked in a natural tomb. The cave's stalactites have since grown around him, making him a haunting relic of a simple wrong step. What must it have felt like to realize there was no way out? Meanwhile, in Africa, Kabwe man, also known as the Broken Hill Skull, was discovered in a mine in Zambia in 1921. Dated to around 300,000 years ago, this skull belonged to Homo heidelbergensis. What caused his death? Evidence points to a crushing blow to the face, possibly from also falling, or being pushed or thrown, into a cave shaft. Like Altamura man, Kabwe man may have died alone, in darkness, a victim not of violence, but of an environment full of hidden dangers. Despite the million ways to die, some survived long enough to leave descendants. The Old Stone Age wasn't just a slaughterhouse, it was a proving ground where toughness, ingenuity and luck decided who lived to see another dawn. Act 5. Neanderthals, eaten by hyenas in Italy. Not far from Altamura, another Italian site, Guattari Cave, reveals a fate both gruesome and humbling. Here, Neanderthal remains, from only about 50,000 years ago, show bite marks and gnaw patterns typical of hyenas. The Old Stone Age was a crucible that forged humanity, but it was also a graveyard of countless lives. From stabs and falls to cannibalism and predation, the ways to die were as varied as they were brutal. The archaeological record doesn't judge. It simply shows us the million ways our ancestors met their ends, leaving us to wonder at their resilience and our own. The cave of Grotta Guattari near Rome was once a den of death. There, archaeologists found Neanderthal remains gnawed and scattered alongside hyena bones. Some skulls had circular holes chewed through them, consistent with hyena feeding behavior. These Neanderthals weren't just attacked, they were eaten. Whether killed by the animals or scavenged after death remains unclear, but the evidence of teeth marks, crushed skulls and bones dragged into dens speaks volumes. Were these individuals hunted, Or did hyenas scavenge their corpses? The skulls and long bones found scattered near the cave entrance suggest a pack of these powerful predators made a meal of the dead or dying Neanderthals. With jaws strong enough to crush bone, hyenas were a constant threat in the Old Stone Age. Imagine the horror of hearing their cackles in the night, knowing you might be next. Was this a battle lost, or just nature reclaiming its own? Imagine the fear of sleeping close to a hyena's lair, or being injured and left behind, only to become prey. The predator-prey dynamic was never far from the surface in the Stone Age. Act 6, Solo Man, a headhunting horror story. Half a world away, on the island of Java, Indonesia, another grim tale unfolds with the Solo Man fossils, dated to around 100,000 years ago. These remains, originally referred to as tropical Neanderthals, include skulls with suspicious damage. Were these individuals victims of headhunters? The evidence suggests some skulls were deliberately broken open, possibly to extract brains, a practice linked to ritualistic or cannibalistic behavior in later cultures. These skulls bear a disturbing signature, cut marks. Not random scratches, but deliberate, patterned incisions. Anthropologists believe these cuts could be evidence of decapitation. Was Solo Man the victim of ritual headhunting? The bones suggest intentional processing of corpses, possibly as trophies or offerings. It evokes a grim image of an ancient execution, or perhaps a form of early warfare. If true, these remains could represent some of the earliest evidence of violent ritual or even proto-religious practice. The Solo River terraces where these fossils were found hint at a violent encounter, perhaps with rival groups or even within their own community. Imagine the terror of being hunted not just for food, but for your head as a trophy, but not before being scalped. Could this be a glimpse into the darker side of early human society? Some skulls bear evidence of inflammation and healing, so the individuals probably survived the altercation. Archaeologists noted that the skull caps were found lacking even the teeth, which is highly unusual, so they interpreted them as victims of an unsuccessful assault, while other skulls where the base was broken out, the result of more successful attempts to slay the victims, presuming this was done by other humans to access and consume the brain. They were unsure if this was done by a neighbouring horde or by more advanced human beings who would have given evidence of their superior culture by slaying their more primitive fellow man. Peking Man of China was also found to be a cannibal, with broken and burned human bones found in the bottom of his cave. Luckily, Peking Woman was not a tidy housekeeper, and she left these bones behind to be discovered 500,000 years later. In a world full of predators and pitfalls, humans not only survived, they adapted, evolved, and eventually conquered. The evidence of cannibalism may disgust us, but it also speaks to ingenuity. The spear wound of SHANIDAR 3 marks violence, but also technological advancement. But it reminds us of the vulnerability and tenderness of our species. These archaeological finds are just the tip of the iceberg. The Old Stone Age was a gauntlet of risks. Predators like saber-toothed cats and cave bears, natural disasters like floods and rockfalls, and human-made threats like warfare and cannibalism. Living in the Old Stone Age meant constant vigilance. A single mistake, a slip, a misjudged throw, a moment of weakness could spell doom. Tools were rudimentary, shelters were basic, and community was everything. Yet these finds show that even with others by your side, death was never far away. How did these ancient people cope with such relentless danger? Did they fear death or accept it as part of their world? The bones themselves are our storytellers. SHANIDAR 3's rib, pierced and partially healed, whispers of violence survived until it wasn't. Solo Man's fractured skulls, found in Java's Solo River terraces, hint at a headhunter's blade. KRAPINA's cut-marked bones, stacked in a Croatian cave, scream of cannibalistic feasts, while El Cidron's broken femurs and jaws in Spain echo a family's last stand. Altamura Man's calcified frame, suspended in an Italian sinkhole, speaks of a fatal fall, and Guattari's gnawed Neanderthal bones bear the teeth of hyenas. Each of these cases pulls back the veil on life and death in the Stone Age. They teach us that our ancestors and cousins lived hard lives, full of fear, danger and violence. But they also show us something else: resilience. Each find is a snapshot of mortality, frozen in time. What new discoveries might rewrite this story? Let us know in the comments, and please subscribe to the channel for updates.